people like you really inspired me, man. You've been putting your work out there. You've
Thanks,
been
man.
so just motivational on that end, just really working hard and getting stuff out to your ability and knowing how your brain works and how your skill set can come into this thing and really help progress people toward better health. And I that's something I really talk about with people is it's easy to listen to someone like Dr. Chaffee or Ken Berry who really understand the human body super well in these systems. And so it can be easy to think, oh, I'm just gonna, leave it to those guys to do the content and, kind of sit back on the sidelines. I think that everyone out there can play a part in this. This is such an important cause that we're behind right now. We've found a huge key to so many people getting better, and it's going to take everyone. Even if that just means starting your own YouTube channel or an Instagram page where you just post pictures of steak, that makes a difference. We're pushing the messaging out there. Even just celebrating the fact that you're eating meat is crazy enough a rebellious move these days. So
Mhm.
don't discount it. Keep doing it. Everyone can find a place where they can play a part and just understanding your own skill set, what you love to do and what you're good at, and just jumping right in and talk to people like Dr. Chafee. Tag him on Instagram. He's really good about that and sharing people. And I know all the other carnivores are super helpful as well. So just get in the game, baby. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and the more voices out there, the more people talking about it, the more noise there is, the more people are aware of it. You're going to be very influential to people that you don't even realize. I thought that I sort of was a bit late getting into the game, and people were saying the things that I thought needed to be said, and so I was just like, oh, is it really worth my coming in? But there was a couple things I thought, well, maybe I can sort of bring this, in my own way. It might be a good addition, but I wasn't really sure. And then people started saying that they'd come across things, but the way I said it was really helpful and that it made sense to them. And somebody else is going to listen to what I say and like, oh, I don't know, that doesn't make sense. But they're going to hear somebody else say something very similar, but they're going to say it in a way from a direction and a context that makes sense to those people. And so I've always been really hopeful that more and more people will come out and make channels. I encourage everybody to get their story out there and start making content, because you're going to influence people and and say things in a way that is going to make sense to certain people, and it's not going to make sense when other people say it. So do get out there, and say something. You just have a whole bunch of people out there talking about how great it is and about how much of a difference it made in your life. People are going to have to um, stop trying to pretend it's not a thing, because it is, and it works, and it works really well, and it's really helping a lot of people. So, get your word out there, get your message out there, and let people know just how much it's helped you. Yeah.
And there are a couple of things you said there that are so critical that I want to highlight. The first one is just how different voices resonate with different people. That's one of the things I really learned as I was going through this content. Just that there's such a spectrum of different styles and deliveries, and we need to take this into account when we're introducing this to people because this is a very new concept for everyone out there, pretty much everyone. And
Mhm.
so you need to figure out if you're trying to help this person heal and become their healthiest self and you want to get them into carnivore the best way you can, it's going to take a little bit of mix and match skills. You got to kind of know their personality, know what they're looking for. And for me personally, I like it hard and straight. Just give me the facts. That's why I loved your podcast and why I like Bart K. Ken Berry's good. I actually don't love it when people are soft and sort of wishy-washy, like, oh, like meat's good, do what works best for you.
Mhm.
I'm kinda done with that, to be honest. I just want the hard facts, man.
Yeah.
But some people do like it a little bit soft and a little more warm and cuddly, and, there's plenty of that on the site too. And just looking through the immense amount of carnivore doctors, and there is a section on the site of just doctor testimonials because I know
Yeah,
people like
nice.
my family are really looking for that authority. They grew up, the older generations grew up really trusting authority figures and the letters at the end of the name. So there's a whole section for just doctors saying it. And so you can go through that, see which ones you think would fit best for the people you're targeting and yeah, make it happen. Get more carnivores going. Help the
Yeah.
world. Heal
Yeah,
everyone.
definitely. Well, cool, man. Well, hopefully people go check that out and take a look. It's really cool. It's a massive, massive platform, a lot of resources there. So it's a good place to send somebody and say, hey, there you go, get going. Um, and so yeah, so apart from that, you got into this from Bitcoin, which is something that I've seen a lot actually. I've heard a lot of people, come to this from Bitcoin, or people from this go, start thinking about Bitcoin. It's not something I've looked into much myself, apart from, understanding its core concept. And uh that it's sort of decentralized, getting away from, these different sort of governments and their control over the monetary system, which is, I think, is probably a good thing. Was it one of the I don't know which Rothschild, but it was like 100+ years ago or something like that. He said, you give me control of the monetary system, and I care not who runs the country. It's just like,
Yep,
because he's
exactly.
he's running the country, and he's just making money off everybody. So don't do that. Don't let don't let people like that be in charge of the monetary system. And so having something decentralized made sense to me, but it's not something I've looked into or invested in, really myself. But it's these sort of interesting concepts, I think, are very interrelated. Once you get the wool pulled off your eyes about something, and you spot the bullshit with how we've been lied to about food and this sort of stuff, and how cholesterol and heart disease and all these other sorts of things, and it's just killed you know, hundreds of millions of people early as a result, probably billions at this point, and caused untold amounts of disease and harm. And you start seeing that, and how readily people are willing to lie about something that can kill and hurt so many people in such horrific ways. Like, you just start looking, okay, well, what else are they lying about? Because they couldn't have just started with that. Like, that's such a big one. It's gone on for so many decades, and it's harmed so many people, and they know it's harming these people, and they clearly don't care. What else don't they care about? And so I see a lot of people from all these different sorts of avenues that have sort of said, like, spot the bullshit in whatever field, and then start looking around and find each other. So tell me a bit about Bitcoin and why you think that's the way to go.
Oh, I'd love to.
Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass fed and finished pasture raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys.
I know people out here are ready for this. They've been warmed up for a long time to look for more lies that are being fed to them, and that's why I'm so excited to bring these worlds together. I would start with just saying anyone out there who's read The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teicholz, I know you and I both had her on our podcasts. This book is basically walking through how every single step of the way that the government has put this huge, nonsensical, big pharma ruled system in place and really ossified it through their power. And the three-letter agencies that have all been corrupted, and they all have infinite power. This is key. Every single one of these governmental arms have infinite power and money because of the Federal Reserve money printer just showering money whenever they want it. They can print money at will. And this is the big key is the money printer is the Death Star of this evil empire here. Because when you rewind way back before the Federal Reserve was enacted in 1913, when we were on the gold standard for 5,000 plus years, and things were a lot different when we had this form of money that could not be printed. It actually gained value over time. How crazy is that? When you got a gold coin as a little kid, you grew up, and when you pass it down to your kids later in life, it's worth more. It was deflationary. That's important. And the reason why it did that is because it had a relatively fixed supply. It was really hard to make more of it. It took a lot of work to mine it. And as the supply grew very slowly, human productivity and efficiency increased very rapidly. So when you have that dynamic, the money actually gains value. And compare that to now, Federal Reserve created in 1913. In 1971, we completely detached from the gold standard. They Richard Nixon comes on and basically says, "Oh, we're just going to use the dollar now. Tough luck.
Mhm.
Like if you don't use this, then we'll throw you in a cage. And if you oh, gold's illegal now."
Yeah.
There
That
was the
makes
6102 was an act. I forget what year it was, around the 20s or 30s, I think, where they literally made it illegal to be holding gold.
sense.
They came to your house and would take it away from you because that gave you a way out of their fiat games. This word fiat is the word you hear in the Bitcoin circle, just talking about this money printer system. So essentially, Bitcoin is the digital version of gold. It's replicating all the things that were great about gold that worked really well. It's scarce. There's a fixed supply on it. It's really hard to increase the amount of Bitcoin in supply, but once it gets to 21 million, it's done. That's going to happen around 2140. There's going to be a hard stop there. So it's very little inflation temporarily, and then it turns deflationary once we hit that ceiling. And so, but already the fact that this is coming out now at such a perfect time, when you look at it on a long enough time frame in the last 15 years or however long it's been out exactly, it's just been going up. And people get caught up in the headlines of, oh, it went up this week, it went down this week, it went up this week, it went down this week. I just don't even care about that anymore. And most of the real Bitcoiners don't care about that anymore. It's just noise. We're thinking about this on a long time frame of, this is a new form of money. This is a new global reserve currency. This is going to take, this is like a hundreds of year project, thousands of years. This is made to be money for the digital future, which is like gold lasted for 5,000 years. This one could last for 10,000 years. And it's fixing that problem of the government having complete power over the money. And I've had a lot of people on my podcast to talk about this, and including some farmers and ranchers talking about how Bitcoin has helped these meat producers save their wealth somewhere where it can't be confiscated, can't be taken away from, if the bureaucracy comes down and raids their farm, like we've been seeing happening more often. They can't take your Bitcoin. It's fully anonymous. You can have a secret wallet and not tell anyone. You can just have your own. And there's examples of this all over the world as well, when people are escaping these awful authoritarian regimes in these third world countries. They're learning about Bitcoin. And for so many years, when these people would try to escape these terrible situations, they would get shaken down at the border. They get robbed of all their money. They get everything stolen from them. But with Bitcoin, if you can remember 12 words in your head, that's all you need to get access to that Bitcoin from anywhere. So it really opens up these fascinating possibilities of sovereignty, of self-sovereignty. And it's a really fascinating rabbit hole to go down. That's why I created the whybitcoinonly.com, because I tell every carnivore that's the next rabbit hole to check out if you haven't. It effectively, the long-term vision, just like carnivore's vision is to heal people with a proper human diet, the Bitcoin vision is to separate money from state. The government should not have the ability to print infinite money for itself and steal from all of you from inflation. Carnivores, they're trying to buy a ribeye. I can see the inflation going on. It's getting crazy out there. It's getting more and more expensive. And it's not getting more expensive because ribeye is getting more valuable. It's getting more expensive because your dollar is losing its purchasing power. They're deflating it away by printing the money. It's quite simple. When the money supply goes up, it dilutes everyone else's fiat currency. So you're getting poorer every time you see these politicians on TV say, "Oh, we're printing a trillion for that, we're printing a trillion for that." That's you getting poorer. They just don't say it that way. It's a stealth tax. It's a way that they tax you without any legislation needed. It's a great way for them to get infinite money to just print tanks and aircraft carriers for all the wars they want to do, pay all the lobbyists off, continue these corrupt three-letter agencies that are keeping us sick and in bed with big food and big pharma. This whole game all comes back to the money. And when you fix that money, you fix the whole problem of all of these cascading effects of power and corruption, creating this clown world we find ourselves in today, including the diet guidelines. That has been made possible by fiat money.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've always, having read Soul and Milton Friedman and Friedrich Hayek and these sorts of Walter Williams, these sorts of people, and also having a brain in my head and thinking. I've long thought you just need to get rid of the Fed, and the ability to print money endlessly is insane. And that sort of, there was a contract when the Fed was created with the government. They said like, okay, well, we can just print this money everywhere, and it's guaranteed and backed. Basically, it's the federal government getting a loan from the Fed, and they just print all this money out. It's always permanently backed by the taxpayer. And it's just like, so you're writing, um, basically, getting loans out in someone else's name, and taking the money, and it's just a complete con game. And I mean, this was done by, was it Woodrow? I believe it was Woodrow Wilson who did this, and he openly was saying that he had to dismantle the Constitution. This was old and outdated. It was 150 years old. And we just got to get rid of this old relic, and we need to have brilliant people running things the way we think, because obviously it's just certain specific people that should be able to have the know-how to run everybody else's lives. When you think about it, you look at the original Greek democracies. Obviously, this isn't a democracy; it's a republic. That's why we wanted to sort of keep it that way, because it will last longer. They typically lasted around 100, 150 years. That's about how long we lasted before Woodrow Wilson screwed things up with the Fed, and then put in the 16th Amendment, which was the federal income tax. And that needs to be repealed tomorrow. I mean, that needed to be repealed 100 years ago. That should never have gone through. They were trying to make that argument. It was just like, we have this big World War I sort of experience. We need to raise money really fast. This is national defense and all this. 150 years, we had none of this. We did just fine. We fought in a lot of wars, and had invasions and all this sort of stuff. And yet, we were still there. But they say, okay, well, we want to do this so we can raise an army really quickly. That was what it was purposed for. It was raising an army for national defense, and then be able to do that quickly. And it would only be like 2-3% of the income tax, only during war times, only to raise an army, only when we actually absolutely had to. But the people at the time were either knew what they were doing, like Woodrow Wilson, that wanted to sort of subvert the Constitution, or they were just not as intelligent as they needed to be, because the original founding fathers, when you read the Constitution, it is so tight in its language. The government, you are not allowed to do this. You can do this and nothing else. It is very clear. The powers of the federal government are few and enumerated, and specifically enumerated. And the rights of individual are basically unlimited. And so the problem with that is that at first they were talking about limiting it and say, okay, well, we'll put a cap on it and say, oh, 10%. And that we can't go higher than that. We're like, if it's going to be something, we only want to go at like 2-3%, only for wartime, only for national defense. You need to write that in. This will only be used for national defense. This will only be a temporary measure. This will never go past this amount. And that's what, all these other, legal, sort of, documents were, how they were written. And they didn't do that. They just said, yeah, federal government gets to tax people's income. And people saying like, whoa, hold on, we should put in a limit. We should say, hey, you can't go above like 10%. They're like, whoa, what are you talking about? 10%? We don't want this going above 3%. If you say 10%, it's going to go up to 10%. Well, if you don't say 10%, and you don't say any other percent, you are tacitly saying 100%, because there is no limit, right? You can even go above that. I mean, there's some places where they, like, if you have a lot of savings, they'll tax you more than your income, because to tap into your savings as well. It's insane. And so don't get any ideas, anybody, and in the government. And so um, immediately the federal income tax rate went up over 90% for the top bracket, over 90%. The first income tax breaks in the early 20s, it was only a few years after there was a federal income tax, was with Calvin Coolidge. And he dropped the top tax bracket down to like 70 something percent, 72%, something like that. Massive growth in the economy, because it was just so stifled, and just like, oh, thank God, had some air to breathe. And you had the roaring 20s as a result of that. So that needs to go. the Fed obviously needs to go. You shouldn't be able just to have a blank check to do whatever the hell you want. I mean, that was at least contained to a partial extent because you still had the Constitution at that point that was s- somewhat unbroken, where the federal government to was not allowed to spend money for anything except the general welfare. And everyone knew what the hell that meant. That meant national defense, something that would affect everybody. And then FDR came in, threatened to pack the courts, scared one of the Supreme Court judges to flip sides. And instead of FDR losing 4 to 5 decisions in the Supreme Court with all the illegal, unconstitutional things he was doing, now he started winning 5 to 4 because he flipped one of them. And because he scared him, even though the Congress, which was a Democratic Congress at the time, FDR was a Democrat, um, was not about it. Back then, the 3 branches of government actually worked as they were supposed to, saying like keeping each other in check. And Congress said, hey, you're overstepping your bounds. You're not going to do that. We're not going to let you. And so he said, hey, I want some Senate hearings for new justices. And they're like, we're not going to hear them. We're not going to talk to them. Piss off. And that was his own party doing that. Now parties run things as opposed to the Constitution and things like that, which is a bit unfortunate. Um, but the
And
thing
all
is,
of them love to print money. Every
yeah,
single one. Every
yeah,
politician out there running right now, they don't want to talk about the spending that they're going to do. They make these promises. Oh, we're going to give you all these goodies. We're
that's
going to
it.
give you these
Yeah,
presents and gifts, and all these things are going to be so great. They don't tell you that every single thing
that
they
you're
hand
paying for
down, the
it.
classic one is the stimulus checks. Those are the ones that everyone sees like, oh, they're so nice to me, giving me
Yeah,
$2,000. That's so nice. They
big
don't
deal.
tell you that they permanently devalued your dollar for that. And it's going to
Yeah,
make the rest of your life harder and your kids harder. Your
yeah,
grandkids' lives will be harder because of that decision. They're
yeah,
just
that's
kicking
it.
the tab down the road to future generations the more they do this. And we
Yeah.
see situations like Venezuela, which is way down the line. I When I was traveling in South America, I got to meet Venezuelan people that experienced that.
Mm,
And they told me about this. And it's absolutely horrible conditions down there. Their currency is just trash. It's all over the roads. It's You need a wheelbarrow of this to just get a towel at the store. It's completely useless. Their currency has gone to zero. And
yeah.
us Americans think that we're so good and powerful because I mean, in a way we are. We have the global reserve currency. We have a lot more abilities to kick the can, but that doesn't mean that the intrinsic value of these pieces of paper is still zero. It's only backed by trust at this point, nothing else. And when
Mm,
people stop trusting it, that's when we actually will see a change.
yeah.
And things will get really interesting very soon as all these other countries who used to use the dollar for trade, like Russia, there's BRICS, there's all sorts of interesting things going on. It's a little bit out of scope here, but long and short of it is countries are realizing we don't really want to use the dollar anymore. You
Mm,
guys are just printing it infinitely. We're paying the price for that. El Salvador is an example of one who just a few years ago said, you know what, they were dollarized and they just said, we're out. We're going to go on a Bitcoin standard. So El
totally.
Salvador is completely Bitcoin legal tender. If you go there, you can buy everything with Bitcoin. They skipped all the extra steps and they just went to the next global reserve currency. And
Yeah,
things are
wow.
getting super good down there. If I'm actually planning on going there at some point soon. I'd love to visit, but from the people who are actually trustworthy, who've been down there and experienced the whole situation, things have gotten so much better. And it's no coincidence why. It's because they have a sounder form of money. And Nayib Bukele came in and made a lot of changes. That's a whole different topic, but the crime rate went from one of the worst in the world to one of the best. And
Mhm.
Bitcoin played a part in that.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor at Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And yeah, so that's the thing, there's already countries like you're saying that are already talking about like not replacing the US dollar as as the world reserve currency. And when that happens, it's big trouble. And some people are arguing that maybe that's probably what people are trying to do on purpose, to destabilize the country and screw up the economy and screw up the U.S., to tear it down and to break it down, break the Constitution entirely, and then bring about some sort of communist hellscape that reminiscent of the 20th century. No, thank you. But yeah, like that, Thomas Sowell talks about that, how printing money is just a hidden tax, because if you print 20% money, it doesn't just put more money in the system. It's just your bank account is now worth 20% less. And so it's very simple math. It's very simple math. Whatever percentage money that they print and put out in the circulation, that takes away from the value of your savings. And so it's a tax on your savings. And so it's very, very devious. Before they did that, they had to only spend money on the general welfare. But then they said, well, if I give money to Ben's a good guy. He's going to spend that. He's going to give that to Jennifer, and they're going to buy something, and that's going to go to somebody else. And he has a family. He's going to buy food for his family, and that goes to a farmer. That farmer does this. Well, that just trickles out, and that helps everybody. And so me giving, $5 billion, stimulus bill to my buddy Ben actually does help the general welfare, because it just helps everybody, right? And it's a con. I mean, that was something that we knew for 150 years never flew, and now they just do it. And that's when lobbyists came in. That's when money entered politics, because now you had these massively expensive campaigns. You had all these people um, paying to you know, get the ear of a politician or a president, and now they're getting all these special interests that are in Washington, and paying to get federal money. And that only happens when you can give money to special interests, and that's actually strictly prohibited in the Constitution. So, like, why the hell don't we repeal that? Why don't we take that to the Supreme Court and say, like, yeah, I can't do that anymore? I mean, that would just sort out a lot of problems right away. But would also sort out a lot of problems is you repeal the 16th Amendment. And if they are not able to tax people, um, their piggy bank goes away, and same with the Federal Reserve. So I totally think they should go away. Even the idea of, like, well, we need to raise money for a war, I don't actually know that that's a great idea either, because previously you had to vote on a war, because you had war bonds. They couldn't raise money to put an army together and build munitions and things like that. Like, we went into World War One with the American army was less well armed than the American citizenry. There was, like, basically the original AR-15 platform. That's pre-World War One. There were more people in America as private citizens that had those, like, semi-automatic rifles than the U.S. Army. They're still using largely, like, bolt action rifles and things like that. So people were, like, saying, like, can I just bring my own gun? Like, it's better than this, And so and that's how it's supposed to be. It's like, oh, you don't want people having better guns in the military? No, you do. You do, because you don't want the military being able to oppress the citizenry. But in any case, the wars happened because people said, I'll give money, I'll buy war bonds. And if that's something I believe in, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And I'm going to put money towards that war effort. And if enough people didn't buy into it, wasn't going to happen. And so if people have a problem with some sort of invasion, they don't have to yell about it and talk about it on CNN and bang the table. They can just say, yeah, well, I'm not putting money towards that. And then it just fizzles out and it goes away. So it actually gives the people a lot more power and control over how our government runs. And that's the whole point. It's the government of the people, for the people, by the people. It's supposed to be, we just live our lives and we get to self-govern, we get to self-rule, and we get to decide whether our nation goes into war, whether things are being spent on stupid shit, and or not. And now we've lost that. Now it's back to the old school oligarchs and monarchs and and rulers, right? Where they get to make the decisions for us, as opposed to us getting to make the decisions for ourselves. And I think that any way that you can get the hell away from that is a good option. That's really interesting that El Salvador has gone to the Bitcoin standard. I mean, even just going to the gold standard is a leg up. There was a statistic I saw. Who knows? Maybe someone can fact check this. But it's something I heard that like 100 years ago, the average cost of a house in America was 3 bars of gold, and right now the average cost of a house in America is 3 bars of gold. And so it's a save against inflation, that sort of thing. But yeah, I heard El Salvador doing a lot of good things. I know that Dr. Jack Cruz was down there as well.
He's still there. He's posted up. That's his
Yeah,
home now. Hmm.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and like he comes back. He's a neurosurgeon in New Orleans. He just comes back for a week each month and just does like a trauma call or something like that, and and he's down there. But like apparently they had him, like the government had him help draft a letter where they're saying that will not accept the WHO dictating medical directives to our country. Like we will not do that. So piss off. So I think that's pretty good. And they're offering like visas to professionals, doctors, lawyers, philosophers. Pretty interesting, that one. People that can are trained how to think as opposed to what to think. That's probably an interesting one too. But yeah, do you know a bit more about the El Salvador things? That actually sounds like they're making some power moves there.
Essentially, that's just a place where you get the Bitcoin, but you want to move it off of there quickly because that is a choke point that the government can screw with. That's a central point of failure, that exchange. So every one of these exchanges has a functionality where you can send that Bitcoin that you bought in the exchange to an external wallet. And you get Blue Wallet on your phone, you can get Moon Wallet, Zeus Wallet. There's lots of options. It's really easy